So, hello, Peter, and thank you for your time for this interview. And I guess congrats for the big win today. So, first, how happy are you about this win?
Oh, I'm pretty happy. I'm going to be honest. There's always a bit of an edge when Heretics play against Koi. As somebody who's not Spanish, I don't fully understand the rivalry, but there's definitely some intense, let's say bad blood and some intense rivalry there. So beating Koi was extra special. So I'm glad the team was able to put on a good performance today.
And it was a 2-0 win, so I guess you are pretty happy about that. So, were you expecting this result like this morning when you wake up?
Honestly, no. I think it was a good performance from the team. I think we were a little bit nervous, I think, at the start because, I mean, let's be clear, Heretics have a 0-3 in best of threes this season. We lost twice in winter, and then we lost the first one against BDS. So I think we were a little bit slow to start, but basically we had a really great play by Evie Mercer on one of the key dragon fights, which was able to swing it. And after that, I think the players were maybe brushed away their nerves and they were ready to go again. So that was good.
And since we are coming to the end of the seasons, like as a head coach, do you feel that the intensity is like much more higher than the beginning of the split or the beginning of the year?
Oh, for sure. And I think the thing is that on this team we have a team full of people that grind nonstop. You know, we have players on this team. I think 4 of our 5 players play 100 solo queues a week, which is like 80 to 100. So it's mainly what I've mainly been telling the players, is to do things in moderation, make sure you're getting the best out of your solo queue. You're not just rage queuing, and that you're making sure that you get good practice and you're fresh. And I think that's been a really big challenge because honestly, there's everyone on this team has something to prove this split, and um, you know, you can't prove anything if you push yourself too far past the limit. The preseason is the time to do that grinding. Now you just refine what you already know, and that's what I've been trying to tell the players that they need to work on.
And as you just mentioned earlier, Heretics didn't win before like a BO3 this year, and
Mm.
this time like you did it. So do you feel that this is a good place for you and that you can like make it to the LEC final?
For sure, fingers crossed. Obviously, BDS beat us last time. They had a very smart adaptation in their draft that we weren't anticipating, but I think we're ready for it. I have a lot of respect for Go to One and Striker, who are the coaches on BDS. They always have something. They always have something. So, tomorrow we'll be going back through our VODs. We anticipated. Obviously, we prepared for BDS. We didn't just prepare for Koi because we need to win both games or else our season's over. So we have a few things of our own planned, but I'm looking forward to seeing what they have planned because it's always very fun to see coaches that I respect and how they plan to attack our team. And against BDS, they always have something. I don't know what it is yet, but I'll know on game one, and that's what we need to prepare for going into the series.
So yeah, you played today, you are playing tomorrow, like so to 2BO3. So how challenging is it like to play 2 days in a row and like to prepare for two different opponents?
Not too bad, to be honest. Like, thankfully, the first series today was 2-0. It's 10 o'clock now, so it's not too bad. But if we'd had a 3 game series first and then another 3 game, and we're leaving here at 12:30 or 1, it's pretty brutal. But right now, it's 10 to 10. The players can handle this. It's not too bad. So I think the important thing is just to make sure that we have some plans coming in. I think we showed BDS a lot last week. We've still got a few more cards, but we showed a lot last week, so we just have to bear that in mind coming into the series.
And of course, I want to speak to about some of your players, and I won't have time to speak about all of them. But being
Sure.
French, I need to speak about Vetheo.
Mhm.
So, who was it your idea like to bring him in the team like for the summer split?
So I think the decision to bring in Vetheo, let's say Heretics in winter and spring, so it was supposed to be a development roster. It was a roster that, we come eighth, it doesn't matter. Um, it's mainly to develop players who haven't played in the LEC and then push on in year two. However, at the end of the off season, we managed to get Jankos out of nowhere. Um, and it made it very hard to build a development roster when you have Jankos in your team. There's automatically more eyes on you. You don't want to look a lot, Jankos is a legend in Europe. Like, Jankos is a legend in League of Legends in the world, to be honest. And like sometimes, if you feel you're underperforming, maybe you don't question his decision when you should. If you feel you're underperforming, it adds more stress to you than it would otherwise add. And I think that was really, really hard for Ruby and Jack in the first two splits. And this impacted a lot our decision to make a change. And obviously, when we saw that Vincent was available, Vetheo, it was a no-brainer. This guy's a guy who's been MVP of the league. It's a guy that he has a lot of, let's say he has a lot of self-confidence. He's not going to be intimidated playing with Jankos. He'll hold his ground in an argument. And, let's say our team is a team that is very confrontational, but it's a team where everyone understands, the time for discussion is outside of the game, and they're willing to go really, really hard on each other, and everyone can take it, and everyone gives it, right? And I think this is really, really good for the environment, and I think he's a perfect cultural fit for this Heretics roster. I think that maybe on Excel, they had a more consensus-based approach versus a confrontational approach, and I think that he wasn't able to show his best side there. So I'm glad that he's having these good performances from Heretics, and he had a great performance today.
So you didn't have any doubt after like his first two split in this year?
So I'll be honest, I did, there's always concerns. But when I talked to management staff, coaches on Excel, I talked to some of the players on Excel, and I talked to Vincent himself, it was really, really clear what the issue was. I'm not going to go into too many details, but let's just say that, there's two main approaches you can have in a team environment, right? You can have a consensus-based approach or confrontational approach, right? Consensus is, we're all best friends. We all must agree 100% on everything. We will negotiate and trade off, right? Whereas there's a confrontational approach, which is like, this is what I believe. This is what I believe. Let's argue it out. Let's fight over it. And I think that's kind of what we have on Heretics, and I don't think this is a bad thing. This is something that Mad Lions have had in the past. It's something that Evil Geniuses had when I was there. It's obviously in that kind of an approach, your job as the head coach is to make sure that the players don't hate each other. Like you have direct and frank discussion in review, but in the game, you don't let it spill over into the game, and outside of the game, you what happens inside the office stays in the office, right? And I think that was the greatest challenge we had. But when I talked to the people who work with Vincent over the last two splits, it was very obvious that this was what the issue was, right? Like they wanted to build a consensus-based team environment, right? And Vincent, he's very confrontational, that's what I'm going to say, but he's not confrontational for the sake of it. He's not stubborn, but he wants to be things explained to him, and he wants to make sure that his point of view is made clear. And this is something that sometimes in some team environments this can be. I mean, we use the word toxic. It's not toxic, right? It's like it's about how you debate and how you discuss and what your rules of engagement between your players are. So when I knew that he was coming in, we have Jankos, we have Flaka. These are players who've they've grown up in this environment in G2, right? So we knew it wasn't going to be a problem. We knew it was going to be a good cultural fit. The question was how would we would start. We had to hit the ground running because sometimes stress can build very, very quickly if you don't have a good start. So we made sure that the players, we boot camped for 4 weeks. I think only SK boot camped for longer than we did. So I think we were already boot camping like a month before the season to make sure that we had time to catch up. So I'm very happy with the work that the players have put in. But again, part of my job now is to make sure that we make sure that we're not impacting our energy coming into the game. It's a long season, so we need to make sure that we conserve energy coming into the season. They put in the hard work now. Now it's just time to show it on stage, and I'm glad that they did it today.
And then to finish the interview, I wanted to highlight the performance of Evie today. Was like pretty good with his flank. And he has quite had the tough time, like on the Twitter, on the community, like to talk bad about him. So do you have any insight to give us and tell us how important he is in the team?
Okay, so I would say that Evie is somebody who is really important in the team because I talked about we have a confrontational approach towards review. Evie's the kind of person who will calm things down. He's the guy that will smooth things over outside of the game. He's critical to how this team functions. We knew when we were signing him that he was going to be a veteran. Obviously, we had concerns. He's played in Japan all of his life. He is the greatest Japanese player of all time, but he has played in Japan all of his life, so it's a step up in competition. But we knew his intangibles outside the game are incredible. he's 10 out of 10 intangibles. Like I've rarely seen a player who's better, and this is somebody who is like he's on the same kind of tier in intangibles as somebody like Impact. Some of the legends of the game. He knows how to make a team environment work. He knows how to contribute, and this is the number one thing he adds to the team. I want to stress this is really, really important. Inside of the game, what that means is that often his style of play, he's a little bit like a Japanese Adam. He's super aggressive, super like chaotic, wants to fight the one-to-one to the death. Throughout his entire career, he's played like that on strong side. And we've asked him on Heretics to adapt a little bit more to playing weak side. Why? Language issue was a major issue, but also now that we brought Vincent into the team, he's somebody who's a quite high resource player, so it's beneficial if ever he can play weak side. And he struggled to adapt to that. I think he's still not perfect. He's still not 100% there yet. But this is a player that he's adapting to a new role in the team. I mean, the community hate doesn't affect him at all. It affects his teammates maybe a bit more than it affects him because, they know what he does outside of the game. So they're always thinking, why the fuck are they being... Sorry, I apologize. Why are they being like this to somebody who's such a nice guy, who's such a great guy, who's such an important part of our team? We win together as a team. But for Evie, Evie's been a Japanese pro. I mean, let me think about how to phrase this. If you are a Japanese pro and you go to international events, you will get a lot of hate, right? Because you're going to get a lot of hate because Japanese teams tend not to progress that far into the tournament, So there's always questioning there. So he's somebody who's very, very used to this, and in Japan, DFM scrimmed a lot of the very top Korean teams. So he's used to gaining things, out of a 0-6 scrim day against T1, he knows how to learn from that. He knows how to learn from losses, and that's really, really valuable in a team like this. So I think he hasn't had the best. He's had some excellent games in summer, but he's also had some rough games, some really, really rough games. But I think that's about adapting to a new role. I think it's about communication. But I just want to say that this guy is really, really important to the team, and it's not something you can't. I wouldn't trade it for somebody if people in the community think they can find somebody who's 10% better, 20% better, that kind of a trade-off is not worth it. You'd have to have somebody who was incredibly better to make up for those intangibles. And I think today he realized how important the game was today. He's been grinding solo queue a huge amount, and the work he's putting in showed on. He's been watching kind of one-on-one VODs and things like this. So he put a lot of work in, and we appreciate the work, but obviously, let's show it tomorrow against BDS. So I that's what I'd say on Evie. I think that's all there is to say.
Okay, then thank you so much, and good luck for your next game. And I'm happy to see that Heavy is going better, I guess, in the game.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.